I don't think, at least from my recollection, I don't think we've done anything quite like what we're going to go through today. Because we've seen a lot of, Tory panic. We've covered we have covered a lot of Tory panic like over the past couple of years. So we know, we know um how how this is sort of played out, how the Tory panic has been going. And it has resulted in about ooh, a lot of articles worrying about the future of the party, the downfall of it. Even the articles we've covered from Will hasn't taken the next step as far as what we're going to cover here. Because the article we're going to cover here is a guy who has been like in the trenches. Like he has been a soldier for like the Conservative Party. He has been in the trenches. He has fought the wars. He has done all that stuff. And now you have him coming out writing an article in Conservative Home saying he is leaving the party. Like, I don't think we've ever covered anything quite like this before. So it is kind of interesting that we are seeing this, and even that Conservative Home themselves would publish this. But who knows? So we'll have a dig into this. We'll have a dig into this because I think this is again kind of interesting about how sort of this is playing out. But needless to say, a lot of the comments down below actually agree with them. Maybe we'll get to those later. But for the meantime, please do remember to click on the like, share, and of course the subscribe button if you are new. Down below, there is the Patreon page. There's the Buy Me Coffee link where you can buy me coffee. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there's the Pony Club you can join down below as well. So let's crack on then onto this. And oh, yes, by the way, it is Wednesday, remember. So there is a new Pony Club video and for the Patreons as well. But that'll be probably a bit later. So on into this. So this comes a guy from Ewan Lawry. And he was, until very recently, he was the area manager of the Midwest and Wales Conservatives. So let's hear his story. So last Thursday, I left the Tories. Ooh, I didn't expect to. I didn't want to, but I was left with no choice. Below is my account as a senior voluntary officer, a candidate, a CCHQ staffer, and now an ex-member. So when I said this guy has been like a soldier, he has been in the trenches. It's he's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, So let's find out about this. Let's find out about his journey, shall we? So he begins, I joined the party because of Brexit. As a patriotic working class Brumble, I have seen, of course, the consequences of deindustrialization, mass immigration, and a general sense of decline. Again, Brexit had nothing to do that, hasn't really sought any of those out. Problems of deindustrialization were, caused by, a certain Margaret Thatcher. And gee, I wonder which party she was a part of. Brexit was and still is an opportunity to right those wrongs. At least half of the Tory party embraced it. At the University of Aberystwyth, I think that's how you say it, the party offered opportunities that a minor campaign role for CHQ to try and revive the university's conservative society, try to help re-establish the local association in time for the 2019 election. In an attempt, of course, to elect its first Tory MP for Credlington since 1874. So this guy, as I keep on saying, he's been there, done that, got the t-shirts. This is a true blue believer. But I'm still very interested because at the moment you're going to see, his problems with the party, what he perceives of the problems. Again, this is the first time we're actually ever seeing this from like someone like his perspective. In any such seat, you'd have to accept that no one will say publicly there is no chance, at least not for now. So you are very unlikely to get the fairy tale local candidate, but a stream of those needing to experience now the ritual humiliation to secure a winnable seat in the future. And stepping up as, of course, of deputy chairman of the Midwest Wales area, there was now ample opportunities to tramp up and down the geographically largest area unit of England and Wales in the party, from notably, of course, the central town of Cliffordon to the village of Carefew in South Pembrokeshire. He supported sitting MPs and MSs, and of course, a mandatory trip to the pub after canvassing sessions, and stood as a candidate, in multiple local elections. No one, of course, ever missed the opportunity to moan. The last government provided pretty plenty to actually grumble about. I had stuck around because our local team was worth it. And despite 14 years of evidence to the contrary, I naively believed that the 2019 promise of transforming our country for the better would be realized. Ooh, naively believed about that 2019 promise. Ooh, things are about to get interesting now. So it seemed so obvious because we had just won that stonking majority on the back of a very simple, incomplete political realignment. Born and, of course, raised in a Labour seat on a council estate in a single parent household, I was the sort of working class conservative the party's future now rested on. And despite the post Brexit immigration catastrophe and disdain for young voters and the refusal to change the crooked Blairite state, it still seemed to be better to be inside the tent, trying to plug the gaps rather than, well, watering it from the outside. So, yeah, you see all these complaints before. So, the post Brexit immigration catastrophe, well, again, where are we going to get all those workers? You should know about that the economically why sort of foreign workers are sort of important for us. Disdain for young voters, that is again a very bad part of the problem where the party is now on that. And then I love this, the refusal to challenge the crooked Blairite state. So that is, of course, the Human Rights Act. It is the Equalities Act. All these things that Blair passed when he came to power are really, really popular. Like, really popular. And if the Tories wanted to get rid of them, they would have to go through a massive fight to get rid of them. And even if they somehow succeeded in getting rid of them, all Labour has to do is, well, when we come back in, we're bringing that back. And bear in mind how popular, like, Human Rights Act is, the Equalities Act, massively popular. So when they say things like, the crooked Blairite state, what they mean is Equalities Act, Human Rights Act, all these things that they've been chomping at the bit to get rid of for years, and they daren't even get rid of because they know the fight that would be involved in it. At least the higher ups and the Conservatives know what the political realities would look like if they got rid of that stuff. Bear in mind, look at all the stuff that Donald Trump's just got rid of. Well, that DI stuff. You are going to see the impacts of all that DEI stuff. There's going to be a lot of voters of color who voted for Donald Trump who are going to firsthand experience what life is going to be like without all those DEI protections, without all those, all that stuff that Donald Trump has just got rid of. And they're going to experience that for the first time in a long time. And all of a sudden, they're going to think, well, actually, maybe all that stuff was actually kind of needed. So we'll see what happens on there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, you see, of course, all of these problems in the party. But I was so better being inside the tent, and I get that. I get that. I get that argument. I still think it is better to be inside the tent than watering it from the outside. You get a lot more say being inside the tent than you do outside. You get to push for a lot more change than you do inside rather than outside. But it's always better to be in the tent than outside it. So anyway, He continues. Then, of course, came the 2024 general election. Ooh. So this is where we're going to really going to start seeing, I think, some of his big complaints on this. So then came, of course, the 2024 general election, with now the well-deserved thrashing confirmed by the betting scandal involving an MP with whom our area had the misfortune to be connected with, and of course the panicked withdrawal of candidates under threat of losing their hard-earned and costly places on the candidate lists to shore up now previously safe seats. And still, we geared up to go door knocking when a good friend asked me to be his agent. I didn't think twice because he deserved success, and in a sane organization, he would have done. As an area officer, I intervened and exasperated when an exasperated association, which is used to being a stepping stone now for ambitious carpetbaggers, we were left reeling and being maneuvered into accepting a CHQ imposed candidate who had repaired their support with being too hungover now to canvass and exploiting the hospitality now of generous supporters. They parachuted someone in. They parachuted someone in. This we've seen for quite a while actually about local conservative organizations demanding more of a say who they want their candidate to be. That's not always the best idea. Let's face it, because sometimes what maybe your local organization wants maybe not might be what's best for national. Just on that front. But that could still not make up for such triumph, such as the English-only leaflets then being sent to now largely Welsh-speaking constituencies, a guaranteed vote loser, and of course the party's now extensive Cardiff offices being unavailable to connect calling now at weekends in a 6-week campaign for reasons that still remain unclear. Oof. Oof. So you cannot, at that point, even do like telephone banking at weekends. Like, imagine for a second you cannot do that during campaigning. You cannot be involved in telephone calls during the weekend. That is bad. Like, from just a simple campaign perspective, weekends are probably your best bet and chance to get a hold of someone if you're going to be doing telephone banking on that point. So, unfortunately, losing, of course, meant handing power to one of the most incompetent and wretched governments in history. God, they have so like I love the fact that this Labour government barely is still not been in power for a year, and yet it's like one of the worst governments in history. Bear in mind, you only have to look back for like the past 14 years to see some really bad, acts that the Tories themselves have, engaged in. you know. But of course, defeat was richly deserved because, as Godfrey Ho infamously said, it is rather like sending your open batsmen to crease only for them to find the moment the first balls are bowled that the bats have been broken before the game by the team captain. And we, of course, still tried to show, at least on the road, now how the promise of defeat would usher in a new era. With both Jerrick, who I'm supported, and Badnock now apparently recognised that the party who needed root and branch reform, a clear out of CCHQ, and a real insurance influence restored now to members. That's not going to happen. There's a lot of stuff going on at the moment in CCHQ about the Conservative Party finances, that their finances may not be in the best of shape, even worse than they are actually willing to admit publicly. It is one of the biggest questions going around about the current Conservative Party. And I would not be surprised to find out after the local elections, maybe you find out that maybe CTHQ didn't offer a full slate of candidates for the upcoming local elections. Just bear that in mind. If that happens, then maybe the money problems are a lot worse than people think. So, alas, we are yet to see, of course, any steps to actually turn the party into an organization that treats candidates and activists more than cannon fodder. Well, That has been quite the case for a number of years, according to some of the stuff we've heard about CCHQ over the years. Here in Wales, members now trying to discuss fundamental issues like devolution or even the party's refusal to rule out doing deals with nationalists seeking to destroy our country. We are now shut down as troublemakers. Instead, we have a very Kafkaesque situation where the top of the Senate group promises a quote plan to hashtag fix Wales with no discernible uh, policies behind it. Surprise, surprise. That's currently the Conservative Party. There are no policies being talked about at all. They're not allowed to on that. Rules were then quietly, of course, nodded through to ensure that now incumbent Senate members were almost certainly now top of the lists in the 2026 elections, giving now no incentive for others to stand. And, of course, leaving less than half the candidates to actually find places filled with the 96 needed. Leaflets are now readily dispatched across Wales to make activists look busy on social media, despite, of course, being an open joke about where most end up. That is, of course, without considering the moribund membership. Ooh, this is what made me read this, by the way, because as we said, the actual membership of the current Tory party, leading to their finances, how bad it is. Oh, uh, hey, this is why we keep on covering the Conservative Party. We are looking at potentially a massive sea change in who is about to be our second party. It ain't Reform, it ain't the Conservatives, it's probably going to be the Lib Dems. This very now cancerous role of patronage, and of course now constant begging emails, which are now even now to amend to the notices about the retirement now of senior party officials. The message from the Welsh Party's November 2024 AGM was very clear. We've moved on, stop dwelling on past mistakes. Full of doubts, I now nevertheless now painted a smile on my face and agreed to stand as the area chairman in December of 2024, mainly because there were no obvious alternatives and to obtain a place on the Welsh board. Surely that would then be afforded a platform to be of nuance to at least get some clarity for those who now are asking very trivial questions like why the Welsh AGM does not include a presentation of accounts. Yeah, if I went to an AGM, I would probably expect to see a presentation of the accounts. That is very true. Then, of course, I attended the board, finding it now to, of course, be a rubber stamping committee. Now, for bickering and over trivialities and the nodding through of at least the least expensive brainwave to show that members are now being kept busy. Yeah, doesn't surprise me that if you have seen for the past couple of years how bad like the Tory party has been acting, doesn't surprise me that this would filter down into like the lower level stuff. It does not surprise me that that is what you are seeing. Chaos spreading from the top, it goes down through the party. And I've always said, if there is anyone who can ever come along and save the Conservative Party, they have to really do real root and branch reform, really go deep in there. And but that would cause a whole panic within itself, that's for sure. So by this point, I was not so much acting in haste and repenting in leisure, but now pulling the plaster off. So I decided to leave the party. It was sad to, of course, leave my political home for 8 years, not because I'm leaving behind friends for life, although I will remain at least firm friends regardless, and I'll, of course, little team, though thoroughly of decent people who now thanklessly have given their all. But then there are now the avenues for my energy. Avenues who do not take members for granted. Avenues who are not totally out of touch reality. I have often, with half tongue in cheek, compared the party to the old Liberals, hollowed out, hard up, and now in denial. Now, in Wales at least, it looks like that is becoming a reality. The party seems to be unable to embrace the future of being both now boldly conservative and radical. Again, what does that actually mean to be boldly conservative and radical? You can say that all you want, but what does that actually mean in policy wise? Stuff. He's even said and pointed out on this, and yet he's pointing out a lot of problems and saying, this is how I saw things, and that's again fascinating to see. Fascinating to see that, as I've long suspected, the chaos that we've seen from the Conservative Party in the top has filtered down into the other institutions, into its local area and stuff like this. This does not paint a very good picture, quite frankly, for 2026 for the Welsh Senate elections. Does not paint a very good picture at all. So the 2026 Senate elections will offer a very unique chance to topple the Welsh Labour government and work out our party's relationship with reform. What about the Lib Dems? Once again, I believe the Lib Dems are running in the Welsh Senate elections, aren't they? Why do you think they might not get a chance on here? Just saying. But who knows? We'll find out, I suppose, in 2026. On our current trajectory, the Welsh Conservatives need not concern themselves. I have one message for my old party. It is this: politics is like the market. If your product isn't good enough, your customers will shop elsewhere. And this echoes what I've been saying for the longest time. There is no policy. No one knows what the Conservative Party currently stands for. No one knows what the Conservative Party is under Kimmy Badenoch. No one knows nothing. And yet here you have this guy who comes out and says, I have left the Conservative Party. Here is all my list of problems. First time we've seen this. I wouldn't be surprised if there are others out there that have done stuff like this that has gone under the radar completely unnoticed. But the fact that this guy actually got in Conservative Home, laying out, this is why I'm leaving, this is why it's so bad. It's kind of interesting to see this type of stuff, because it goes to show you that there's deeper problems, not only just at the top of the Conservative Party, but there are problems all the way down. And that even if you, let's say, you manage to fix like the very top of the party, let's say Kimmy Badenoch succeeds in that somehow. I don't know how. Let's say she succeeds. What about the down below her? Something houses built on sand, I believe. So as always, two big points coming up. Obviously, the upcoming local elections. We don't know, of course, if they're going to be in May. We may see a situation where a lot of local elections maybe are a bit spread out, because there's a lot of stuff coming in about the reorganization of the council stuff. There is, of course, upcoming regional mayors potentially being put in place as well. So that maybe might delay these elections. We might see these maybe later this summer. Who knows at the moment? We'll see what happens, but there's just a lot of paperwork, shall we say, maybe slowing when these local elections might be. I'm still hoping that they might be in May. Those are just going to cause a big headache for Kimmy Badenoch. But of course, as I've always said, 2026 is going to be a big year. That is when she's going to have to really start to show that she's capable of doing something, offering something. Because at the moment, she's not offering anything. And then you see guys like this who will just walk away from the party, who basically, if I ever got a chance to talk to this guy, would probably, I think, openly admit he's voting for reform. So who knows? But let me know what you think down below in the comments. I'd be interested to see you think. Have you spoken to anyone in like conservative organizations? What do they say going on in like the party? Not necessarily at the top, but like locally and regionally. That's very interesting to sort of see and hear what's going on there. So as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, click the like, click the share button on your way out. And of course, we'll see you all next time.